$50 billion in merchandise. 50 billion. Star Trek can't touch that because Star Trek inspired the cell phone, tablets, and actual NASA scientists. Who cares about toy sales when you've changed the world? Change the world. Star Wars changed cinema. Industrial Light and Magic revolutionized special effects for the entire film industry. Special effects versus actual effects. Star Trek inspired real technology that you're probably using right now, and that technology lets people watch Star Wars on their phones. You're welcome. Martin Cooper invented the cell phone because of Star Trek's communicator. He said so himself. What technology did Star Wars inspire? Lightsabers. Everyone wants a lightsaber. That's not real technology. That's a toy. It's the most iconic weapon
in fiction. Kids worldwide make the sound effects. Show me anything from Star Trek that has that level of cultural penetration.
The Prime Directive is discussed in actual ethics courses. Star Trek created philosophical frameworks that extend beyond entertainment.
And Star Wars created the Force, which people listed as their religion on census forms. That's cultural impact.
That's people being weird on census forms. The Prime Directive influences real debates about intervention, AI ethics, cultural preservation.
Star Wars made
$6.3 billion at the box office. Star Trek made $2.2 billion. That's not even close, because Star Trek focused on television, 850 episodes across 60 years versus 9 movies. Quality over quantity. Those 9 movies changed cinema. Star Trek made television shows. Made television shows that inspired generations of scientists, engineers, astronauts. Stephen Hawking appeared on Next Generation. When did a physicist appear in Star Wars?
Because Star Wars is entertainment, not a science lecture. It's space fantasy, and it's brilliant at it.
Exactly, it's fantasy. Star Trek is actual science fiction exploring real scientific possibilities, with magic transporters and warp drives that violate physics, theoretical physics. NASA has a lab researching concepts from Trek's warp drive. It's aspirational science fiction, and the Force is aspirational spirituality. It synthesizes Eastern and Western philosophy into something universally appealing, or it's magic with a fancy name. Star Trek respects real science. Star Trek is boring. There, I said it. It's not boring, it's thoughtful. Not every episode needs explosions and lightsaber duels. The good ones do, and Star Wars delivers spectacle. The Death Star trench run, the Hoth battle, the Endor speeder chase. Visual effects, which are impressive, I'll give you that. But where's the substance? The hero's journey, father-son conflict, redemption. These are universal themes told through space opera. And Star Trek explores what it means to be human, the ethics of intervention, the balance between security and freedom, real philosophical questions, while wearing ridiculous uniforms. The original series uniforms were iconic, and they featured a black woman in a position of authority in 1966. That's genuinely groundbreaking, I'll concede that. Ahara was important. First interracial kiss on television during the Civil Rights era. That's not entertainment, that's social progress. And Star Wars had Princess Leia, who was a leader and a fighter, not just a damsel in distress, in a metal bikini for one scene, and she strangled Jabba with her own chains. She's a badass. Star Trek had a female captain leading an entire series in the 90s, Captain Janeway on Voyager. One show. Star Wars has Leia, Padme, Rey, Ahsoka, Jyn Erso, and now multiple female Jedi across all the new shows. Because they're playing catch-up, Trek was ahead on representation from the beginning.
Trek had an all-white male bridge crew in the original series.
Except for Uhura and Sulu, during a time when that was revolutionary.
I'll give you the original series was groundbreaking, but cultural impact? Star Wars is everywhere. Galaxy's Edge at Disney, lightsaber toys, Halloween costumes. Darth Vader's helmet is recognized globally.
By people who want to consume products. Star Trek fans want to explore ideas.
That's so pretentious.
It's true. Star Trek episodes screened at the United Nations. When has Star Wars been used for cultural diplomacy?
Because it's entertainment. Not every piece of media needs to be educational.
Science fiction should inspire and educate. That's the genre's purpose, to explore future possibilities.
Science fiction should tell great stories, which Star Wars does better. The original trilogy is perfect storytelling.
The original trilogy is great. I'm not denying that. But it's 3 movies. Star Trek has produced consistent content for 60 years.
Consistent? Enterprise got canceled, Discovery was divisive, Picard was uneven.
And the Star Wars prequels were terrible. The sequels were divisive. Don't pretend Star Wars has a perfect track record.
The prequels gave us memes and world building. The sequels made billions of dollars.
Making money doesn't equal quality.
It equals popularity, which is what we're debating, cultural supremacy, and Star Wars is more popular.
Among casual viewers, Star Trek fans are more dedicated.
Because there are fewer of them, Star Wars has massive fandoms across generations.
So does Trek. The original series fans, next generation fans, multiple conventions, active communities.
Star Wars Celebration is one of the biggest fan conventions in the world. 40,000 people attend.
And there are dozens of Star Trek conventions annually. Plus, every sci-fi convention has Trek panel.
Because it's old and established, Star Wars is still growing. The Mandalorian broke streaming records.
One good show. Star Trek has multiple series running simultaneously right now. Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks.
That nobody's watching.
Plenty of people are watching. Just because it's not mainstream doesn't mean it's not valuable.
But we're judging mainstream impact, and Star Wars is mainstream. Trek is niche.
Star Trek was mainstream for decades. The Next Generation was hugely popular.
20 years ago, what's Trek's mainstream relevance now?
It's still producing content, still inspiring scientists, still exploring philosophical questions.
And Star Wars is still making billions, still filling theme parks, still dominating pop culture.
Through nostalgia, people go to Galaxy's Edge for childhood memories, not because the new content is good.
The Mandalorian is excellent. Andor is excellent. They're making great new content.
2 good shows out of how many attempts? Solo flopped. Book of Boba Fett was mediocre.
Still made money, still part of the Empire.
Empire. That's appropriate. Star Wars is a commercial empire. Trek is a philosophical legacy.
You say that like it's a bad thing. Building an empire means people love it.
People buy it. Loving it is different.
Oh, come on. People love Star Wars. The emotional connection fans have is genuine.
So is Trek fans' connection. But it's based on ideas and hope for the future, not nostalgia for childhood toys.
That's dismissive. Star Wars connects emotionally because of the father-son story, redemption arcs, the hero's journey. Those are powerful themes.
Which Trek also has. But Trek adds layers of ethical complexity. It's not just good versus evil.
Not everything needs to be complex. Sometimes clear good versus evil is powerful storytelling.
And sometimes moral ambiguity is more realistic and thought-provoking.
I don't want realistic in my space fantasy. I want lightsabers and the Force and epic battles.
I want a vision of a future where humanity has evolved past war and poverty, where we explore peacefully.
That's boring.
That's hopeful. Trek presents an optimistic future worth working toward.
And Star Wars presents an exciting story worth watching, multiple times, in IMAX.
On subscriptions to Disney Plus that you're paying for monthly.
And you're paying for Paramount Plus to watch Trek. What's your point?
My point is Star Wars is a commercial product. Trek is a cultural touchstone.
They're both commercial products. Gene Roddenberry wanted to make money too.
But he also wanted to explore humanity's potential, to inspire, to educate.
George Lucas wanted to tell a great story and created modern mythology. That's valuable too.
I'm not saying it's not valuable. I'm saying Trek's impact extends beyond entertainment.
So does Star Wars. ILM changed the film industry. John Williams' score is instantly recognizable globally. The sound design revolutionized cinema.
Those are technical achievements. Trek inspired the actual future.
And Star Wars inspires dreams, imagination, the desire to believe in magic and heroes.
Trek inspires
There's the desire to build a better world through science and cooperation. Different kinds of inspiration.
Both valid.
Agreed, but one is fantasy, one
is science fiction. They're not the same thing.
Which is why we're having this debate. Final arguments. Let's end this.
Gladly.
Star Wars is the supreme science fiction franchise because it achieved unprecedented cultural and commercial dominance. $6.3 billion in box office revenue, plus $50 billion in merchandise sales. It created the lightsaber, the most iconic weapon in fiction that children everywhere still imitate. It revolutionized special effects through industrial light and magic and changed how movies use sound design. John Williams' score is instantly recognizable globally. The franchise built multi-billion-dollar theme parks at Disney that are destinations in themselves. It made science fiction mainstream and accessible to everyone, not just genre fans. 3 generations have grown up with Star Wars, connecting families across decades. It created modern mythology using Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. Darth Vader, Yoda, R2-D2 are recognized worldwide even by people who've never seen the films. It dominated pop culture for nearly 50 years and shows no signs of stopping with new series breaking streaming records. That's not just success, that's supremacy. That's the greatest science fiction franchise ever created.
Star Trek is the superior science fiction franchise because it inspired real technological development that changed humanity. Arden Cooper explicitly cited Trek's communicator when he invented the cell phone. NASA scientists cite the franchise as inspiration for their careers, actual rocket scientists working on real space exploration. The franchise broke social barriers with the first interracial kiss on American television, and diverse representation decades before anyone else attempted it. It explored complex philosophical and ethical questions thoughtfully through 850 episodes across multiple series. It presented an optimistic vision of humanity's future, where we've overcome war, poverty, and prejudice through science and cooperation. It influenced real ethical discourse through concepts like the Prime Directive being taught in university philosophy courses. Episodes screened at the United Nations as cultural diplomacy. Stephen Hawking appeared on The Next Generation. It made science cool and inspired generations to pursue STEM careers, contributing to actual technological progress. Star Wars entertained us brilliantly. Star Trek changed the world and inspired the future we're building. That's the difference between a franchise and a legacy. So it's entertainment versus education, cultural dominance versus cultural impact, 50 billion in merchandise versus inspiring the cell phone. Exactly. One made people buy things. One made people invent things.
One told universal stories everyone could connect with.
One showed a future everyone could aspire to build.
Fantasy versus science fiction as genres.
Escapism versus inspiration.
And here's what drives me crazy. You act like making people happy through entertainment is somehow less valuable than being educational.
I'm not saying it's less valuable. I'm saying inspiring real technological progress and social change is more impactful. Impact isn't just about invention. It's about cultural moments, about families bonding over movies, about kids dreaming of being Jedi. And Trek gave kids the dream of becoming scientists and engineers, which they actually could become. Both are valid dreams. But Star Wars reached more people with its dreams. Reached more people to sell them merchandise. Trek reached the right people to change the world. The right people? That's elitist. That's practical. Would you rather inspire 1 billion people to buy toys or inspire 1,000 scientists to invent the future? I'd rather inspire 1 billion people to believe in heroes, redemption, and hope, which Star Wars does. And Trek inspires people to be the heroes, to build that hopeful future through science and cooperation. Different philosophies, different impacts, different kinds of greatness. But only one inspired real technology that changed how humanity lives. And only one created a cultural phenomenon that spans 50 years and 3 generations. Both matter, but one contributed to actual human progress. And one contributed to human happiness and imagination. Progress versus pleasure. Science versus storytelling. The future we build versus the fantasy we escaped into. And neither of us will ever concede that the other might be right, because we're arguing about fundamentally different values. You value what Trek made people to create. I value what Star Wars made people feel. Both changed culture, just in different ways. Ways that aren't comparable on the same scale. Which is why this debate never ends. because we're measuring different things and calling them by the same name. 50 billion in merchandise says one thing, the cell phone in your pocket says another. Lightsabers versus communicators. Fantasy versus science fiction. Entertainment versus inspiration. And that's the fundamental divide that makes this debate impossible to resolve.
Two franchises that define science fiction in completely opposite directions.
One made us dream of magic. One made us build the future.
And somehow, both were
Exactly what we needed.